So as I mentioned a few moments ago, we are going to be exploring the idea of awakening our soul over these next several weeks. I've titled today's lesson, To Walk in the World, to walk in the world, and to do so with spiritual insight, with spiritual eyes. I shared with you that I came across this book by Mark Nepo, The Book of the Soul. And I was taken by it. It's not his number one bestseller, but it is high up there among the 23 books he's written. What I liked about this particular book was its simplicity in laying out the idea that there are 4 essential pathways to developing and experiencing a meaningful life. And he says that they are these, and I think that he's right with what he is expressing here. That number 1, to navigate the world with awareness. That's what we're going to be looking at today. To navigate the world with awareness. The second is discovering our true inheritance. This is something that's very at the core of unity. As I said, one of our basic principles in unity is that we are made in the image and after the likeness of Spirit of God, that we are divine, that we are essentially good. So Nepo says that discovering our true inheritance is one of the 4 pathways to experiencing a more meaningful life. The third is widening our circle of concern, being not just aware of our own needs and the needs and preferences of our family and our friends and people that we know and like, but widening that circle of connection. And the last pathway that he writes about in the book is one that really spoke to me. It's the idea of supporting each other's spiritual awakening. Supporting each other's spiritual awakening. The way you live your life, what you do, what you share with me, how you might challenge me, helps me to grow spiritually. And hopefully the vice versa is true as well. That one of our responsibilities, I think, is to help one another to awaken spiritually so that we do get that everyone is sacred, everyone is divine. Everyone is filled with the Spirit of God, the Spirit of love. So today, on this first pathway, the pathway of navigating the world with awareness, there are 3 main focal points to this, and we'll drill down to each of them, but I'll tell you what they are first. The first is about grounding our spiritual selves in the reality of everyday life, grounding our spiritual selves and the reality of everyday life. The second is about acknowledging the challenges of modern existence. Would you not say that there are a few challenges to life today? Yeah. And the third is seeking to find meaning amidst the chaos. Seeking to find meaning amidst the chaos. To pay attention, this is our endless and proper work. To pay attention, this is our endless and proper work. So navigating the world with awareness is about grounding our spiritual selves in the reality of everyday life. One of my colleagues and friends in ministry, his name is Reverend Jim Rosemary. He was in ministerial school the year before me, so we overlapped. And he was one of the folks in our ministerial class that we would call a mystic. He had just this mystic energy about him as he approached Unity's teachings. And he wrote a book that I really, really liked. And the book is Even Mystics Have Bills to Pay. Isn't that good? Even mystics have bills to pay. It's what I think Nepo is getting at when Nepo says that we need to ground our spiritual selves in the reality of everyday life. It's one of the things that I appreciate so much about Unity. When I first found Unity, there were many things that were important to me. One was our inclusivity. The other was our practicality, that we would come into a space like this. I would go into a space like this, and I would listen to my minister, and I would feel a certain energy and beauty and sacredness in the room and with the music and with the message. But there was always something that I was challenged to take from that experience, from that hour, and to use it Monday through Saturday until I sat back down again in that sanctuary. And so grounding ourselves in the reality of everyday life is about recognizing that our spiritual practice is not something that's just meant when we sit in the morning on our meditation cushion or chair and light our candle or do our journaling work or light our incense. Those are all wonderful, beautiful practices, but it is also about how do we carry that energy into the dailiness of our lives. So it's not about escaping the world. It's about what we bring into the world. It's about recognizing even mystics have bills to pay. And so what does it look like to ground our spiritual selves in the reality of everyday life? It could look like a lot of different things. I think one of the things it looks like is practicing bringing our full attention to whatever it is we're doing. If that's a conversation we're having with somebody, to bring our full attention to that. If it's back looking at the beautiful art in our art gallery, it's bringing our full attention to that. If we're driving, it's about bringing our full attention to that. Doesn't matter what it is. But to really practice, and it is a practice because it's so easy to be absent-minded. Have you noticed that? Have you? I've noticed that. I'll tell you, it hit me like a ton of bricks just yesterday. So I was helping to, or the day before yesterday, it doesn't matter, but I was helping to prepare dinner, and I was taking something out of the oven, and I needed my mitts to take it out. So I grabbed my little hot mitts, I took it out of the oven, and then I set my hot mitts down and went about and did something else. And then I needed to get my hot mitts again. And I typically keep them in just one place. And I'm looking, and they're not there. Now, mind you, I had just taken them off only moments ago. And I'm looking on every counter. I've got my husband, my mother, my daughter. We're all in the kitchen. We're looking for the mitts. Mom, you just had them. I know I just had them. Do you know where I found my mitts? No, not in the oven, not in the trash. In the refrigerator. I have never done that before. I opened the door to get something else, and there are my oven mitts. I know. And I said, boy, I don't know where I was. But I certainly wasn't fully present in that moment, right? It's just catching ourselves and being able to laugh with each other and at ourselves and go, wow, I thought I was doing better than that. And maybe much of the time I am, but I certainly wasn't in that moment. And what if it had been something really important? Really important. Grounding our spiritual selves in the reality of everyday life, practicing being more fully present wherever we are, whatever it is we are doing, finding the sacred in everyday moments, making whatever we're doing an opportunity to practice the sacred. As I was mentioning last week, the idea of doing it in remembrance of something sacred, doing it in remembrance of something important. Spirituality is not about being elsewhere, it is about being here now fully. Be here now. Say that with me. Be here now. Ram Dass wrote a whole powerful book on that years ago. Still every bit as helpful as when he first wrote it. Be here now. Bringing our spiritual selves into the reality of just our routine lives, our ordinary lives and responsibilities, we can find echoes of that in the book of Proverbs. We can find echoes of that in the the wisdom literature of the Bible and the book of Ecclesiastes, in both of these places, we are challenged to bring the sacred and to bring awareness to the everyday walk we have in life. In the Tao Te Ching, there is the emphasis on living in the flow of life. There is the emphasis on balance and on simplicity. These are very practical and very concrete ways that we can ground our spiritual selves in everyday life. The second in this idea of navigating the world with awareness is acknowledging the challenges of modern existence, naming them. Sometimes just reminding ourselves, hey, things are a little bit hectic right now, and then taking a moment to name them, whatever it is that is so for you. One of the things that has concerned me in our metaphysical teachings is sometimes we take things a little too simplistically. And, the power of affirmation is a power to affirm the truth that we want to bring forth. But sometimes what I have seen people do is to take that in an overtly simplistic way, almost as if they're using an affirmation as a Band-Aid over a gaping wound or trauma, instead of saying, okay, I can affirm the truth of the potential in this situation, of the reality I want to bring forth, and I am also going to see and acknowledge what it is that's actually going on in my life right now. Does that make sense? To not ignore it, to not ignore the shadow in ourselves and in our world, to not stay stuck in it, but to absolutely recognize that it is there. It means we recognize if we are experiencing a lot of stress and pressure in our lives. That we name it, that we call it, we seek whatever help we can get to better manage it, but to know that it is not unless we can face something and acknowledge its existence that we can find the path through and beyond it. When we ignore it, we pretend that it isn't there, it just has a way of festering. Have you noticed that? You can only keep things down for so long before what happens. I've used this example with us so many times, taking that beach ball in your pool or in the ocean and pushing it down in the water, and the further you push it, it takes more energy, right? The further you're pushing it down, but what happens the minute you let go? It doesn't just go away. It pops up, and have you noticed that it usually pops up with a little more energy and force? Right. Acknowledging the challenges of modern existence, facing them with honesty and awareness. It's about recognizing the impact that all of this has on us when we are feeling a great deal of stress, when we are feeling like we're not able to move forward, or we're stuck, or we're feeling empty. It causes us to feel disconnected, I think, from who and what we really are. You're not making it up when you think that there is difficulty and complexity to living life today. There is. As I talk to parents, I think about the very unique challenges that parents today face that John and I didn't face when our kids, Jonathan and Jennifer, in their late 20s and early 30s, we weren't dealing with some of the same things. Social media is a real phenomenon that parents have to look at, adults too, right? But that we have to look at the modern stresses, the modern challenges, the social media, the work-life imbalance. Have any of you, if you're not retired, so if you're already retired, you're in a different place, but if you're still working, do you still find yourself trying to strike that work-life balance? Yes? Yeah. And maybe even more so now than in generations before, because generations before probably didn't even hold that as a goal, right? But we're recognizing that there needs to be, for our own physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, a certain work-life balance, a certain ebb and flow. I think many people are still coming out of the social isolation that we experienced during COVID, that also, I think, sent many of us to spend so much more time getting whatever we get at the opposite end of a screen. So rather than going out physically shopping, we do it from our screen in isolation. Rather than maybe going out and watching a movie in a theater with other people, we watch it solely from a screen. Many different examples of ways that we have isolated, and there's a downside to that. We are social beings. We really do need one another. It doesn't mean we have to give up any of those things. It goes back to this idea of balance so that we experience this awakening of the soul. We can experience more of the richness and beauty and sacredness of life. Myrtle Fillmore said, "Peace is not the absence of noise or activity, but the awareness of the presence of God in the middle of it." Let me repeat that. Peace is not the absence of noise or activity, but the awareness of the presence of God in the middle of it. Michael Beckwith said, "The stress of modern life is not just from doing too much, but from forgetting who we are while we're doing it." It's subtle, isn't it? At least I think it's subtle. It's bringing a different understanding into each interaction that we have, remembering who and what we are in the midst of doing whatever is ours to do. And then the third idea that he emphasizes in this practice of navigating our life with awareness is seeking to find meaning amidst the chaos and fragmentation of the world. Do any of you feel like life has gotten a little more chaotic, your personal life? I do. I feel like my life, maybe that's because of the 2 puppies. I don't know, and there's a lot of, I could look and say situationally, and I can't blame anybody for any of it. I'm the one that puts what I put on my calendar and what I say yes to, what I say no to, so it's not out of blame. But I can look and go, yeah, things seem a little more chaotic right now in the Purcell household. True for any of the rest of you? A little more chaotic, or maybe a little more fragmented as you're just making changes, planning for a new child to come into your family, dealing with a change maybe in work or life situation. And one of the things that helps me as I'm dealing with what feels to me like either personal or collective chaos or fragmentation is remembering the very Eastern Buddhist concept of impermanence, that everything changes. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. There'll be a time those puppies sleep all the way through the night. There'll be a time, you fill in the blank for whatever it is for you. There'll be a time when there is something a little bit easier. And then that too will pass. It's the idea of being able to hold whatever is arising in one's life with openness and with gentleness. It's much easier on the soul when we do that. It's also much easier on the people that live with us when we do that, seeking to find meaning amidst the chaos and fragmentation of our world, looking for patterns, looking for connections. What can you pull out of the chaos or the fragmentation of your life right now? What might it be inviting you to explore? What might it be inviting you to get better at? What quality or way of being might it be helping you to deepen? Connecting with something beyond just the immediacy of what's going on. Connecting with a larger purpose trying to see some sort of pattern, some sort of fluidity in the midst of the fragmentation or in the midst of the chaos. In the Tao Te Ching, it says, there was something undifferentiated and complete, which existed before heaven and earth. Silent, empty, it stands alone and does not change, goes around and does not grow weary. It is capable of being mother to the world. I do not know its name. I call it Tao. It's speaking of this ground of being from which everything that exists has emerged, and yet knowing that there is a certain ineffableness of it, a certain inability to be able to articulate just what it is, but to be able to be with it and to flow with it, to not get tripped up by the chaos, to not get tripped up by the fragmentation, to recognize that even in the very midst of that, there is an innate order. One of the 12 powers that we talk about in unity is the power of divine order, of recognizing that even in the midst of chaos, our personal chaos or a broader collective chaos, there is a flow of order. And we will see that when we can pull back and take a much wider view and not get tripped up by the slice that we are focusing on right now. Joel Goldsmith said, our greatest challenge is not the outer world, but the inner world we have neglected. It's so easy to neglect that inner world, isn't it? Because of all the demands we feel on our time. And we say, I'll do this later. I'll do my meditation later. Oops. And then we discover, I haven't done it for a while. I haven't done it for a while. Our greatest challenge is not the outer world, but the inner world we have neglected. When we come back to center, the outer chaos loses its power. Take that in for a moment. When we come back to center, the outer chaos loses its power. Think about just a spinning wheel for a moment. The circumference of the spinning wheel. It seems to be going fast, right? If you look at the center, if you look at the hub, what does that look like? It looks very different, doesn't it? Almost steady, very little movement compared to the outer. When we come back to center, the outer chaos loses its power. This is why even simple techniques, like bringing our attention to our breath when we are in the middle of a chaotic, fragmented day or activity, just going, come back to center, can make a significant difference. A significant difference. These are the ways that we navigate the world with awareness. It is our proper and sole practice, according to Nepo. Life is consciousness, said Ernest Holmes. When we awaken to this truth, the fragmented pieces begin to find their way. So as you think about the week ahead of you, how can you navigate this week ahead of you with greater awareness? What would that look like for you? Where in this week ahead of you might you be able to bring in a little more of the feeling of stillness, a still mind, a still body? Where might you bring that in? How in this week before you can you pay closer attention and be more fully present to whatever it is that you have to do this week? This is a way our spiritual practice becomes anchored in a very personal way in the living of our daily lives. Even mystics have bills to pay. Namaste.